Well, let's get on with mushroom photography. We've held this contest, well, for quite a number of years. I've been running the photography stuff. In fact, it's the reason I joined MMS about 12 years ago. Always loved photography, and it's one of the reasons I'm out in the woods looking for mushrooms all the time. So I had about a 4-hour presentation put together, but after that introduction, I'm going to cut it down to about 45 minutes. We've got 40 slides to go through, and I am asking for brief comments along the way from past award winners and from judges. The agenda for the evening is a brief intro to the this year's photo contest, and then we're going to spend most of the time on looking at and examining last year's winning photos or submissions, and then just a few minutes at the end on mushroom photo tips. So with that, let's see. The schedule. Halloween, the photo submissions are due by midnight. I'm already starting to get a few submissions coming in, which is terrific. Our meeting on December 13th, all of the submissions that I've received will be shown at that Zoom meeting. And so it's a good chance for our members to see what everybody found over the last year. Pretty good cross-section. And it really helps improve all of our identification skills. In December and maybe the first part of January, we're going to have judging of the submissions by a select panel of 5 jurors. And February 5th, 2022, the banquet will be held at the Minnesota Valley Country Club. We have a new chef this year, Daniel Wiesner, who is also an award-winning chef. Our prior chef has gone to other pastures. Daniel has been in the local chef community for a number of years, and I've spoken with him, and he loves cooking with mushrooms, of course. At the banquet, we also do the awards. We have the fungal food, we have friends, and we have photos. I am opening up the invitation to submit mushrooms, not photos, to be used in the banquet and the raffle. The mushrooms that are used in the meal, which is typically 3 or 4 courses, all contain wild foraged mushrooms that are contributed primarily by our membership. So there'll be more on that coming out a bit later, but if you have an excess of some kind that's prime edible, please let me know. I'll give you my contact information in just a bit. The photo contest, as last year, will be conducted by a 5-person jury, not by voting by our whole membership, and that's due to having Zoom meetings. The jurors are past award winners and at least one person who's not won twice before. There are 5 awards in each of 3 categories, and at least 2 of those awards in each category are to entrants who have not won more than twice before. All photos must be submitted as digital images in JPEG format. And very importantly, at least for me, is that each photo must be labeled as follows. And that you would start with the category, PS or O, which is pictorial, scientific, or other, your last name, your first name, and the title. The category for science should also be labeled with genus and species if you have it. And I'll say more on that later. We do have a team of people that can help you identify genus and species after you've submitted if you're unsure, but take your best shot at it when you submit, please. So the pictorial category has 5 photos limited. Scientific has 5 submissions per species, but you can have multiple photos combined into a single slide, like in PowerPoint or something that you've combined them, or up to 3 separate photos, which would be considered one of the 5 entries, 3 separate photos of a specimen. The last category of activity, humor, and other is limited to 5 photos. And text may be applied to the photos in that category because that sometimes adds to the understanding of your humor. I usually need to have that for myself.
Howard, this is Nancy. You said 5 for humor. It's 3, I think. Is that right?
There are 3 photos.
A maximum of 3, right?
There's a maximum of 3 photos in humor. I'm sorry if I said 5, but there'll be 5 awards in humor. And lastly, again, submissions are due October 31st, midnight. That still gives us 3 weeks. If you don't have your winning photo done yet, or just one you want to share, you've got time to get out in the woods. I'm finding mushrooms are still quite plentiful. Once you get your photos selected, send them to me as an attachment to an email, or it could be a link to a photo sharing website, to photos@minnesotamycologicalsociety.org. Now, all of that information is in the rules. But I'm not going to have you read these. You can find the details in the Toadstool Review, which came out today. It should be in your email, in your inbox. It's also posted on the MMS website. So take a look there for the details, but I just went through what are kind of the highlights of what you need to do to submit. So with that, I thank the 2020 judges, Nan Etzweiler, John Lamprecht, Ron Spinoza, Elsa Pizzino, and Kathy Urich. They did the judging last year. I have 3 judges that have volunteered so far. One is someone that's not one. So there's still 2 open positions. If you want to become a judge, let me know. John Lamprecht and Ron Spinoza are also identification advisors. They will assist in helping you or me identify genus and species if you're unable to do that on your own. But the idea for the science is to identify genus and species with your images. And last year, we had a total of 27 entrants. 21 of those entrants had not won twice before. We had 11 winners, 5 of which were entries for their first time. We had 157 images submitted and 13 place awards given. What I thought was really cool is there were 130 species represented in that 157 images. So we're starting to receive those now. I'm wondering if given 1,000 members now, we should vastly increase the number of entrants this year, even if it was a crummy summer for photographing mushrooms for the most part. Now on to an analysis of the various categories and what makes the images winners. And this is where I'd like the jurors and past award winners to comment on your photos if you feel so inclined. Otherwise, I'll mention what I think is pretty cool about them. I'm not a judge, by the way. I just do the coordination and distribution of the images without people's names attached. So in pictorial category, the quality of the photo is the primary criteria, including composition, lighting, clarity, depth of field, the aesthetic quality. So we'll just go on to the first one, which is an honorable mention given to Nadine Center. And I believe, Nadine, you're here. If you want to make
Yep.
any comments, you've got several images that you might look at. I pulled your camera, which was a Samsung Galaxy, off the image that you submitted. The JPEG images embed this information. That's one of the reasons I like to have JPEGs submitted if possible. And we can see that it was a Galaxy phone. You shot it at ISO 200, a 40th of a second, and f1.8, and the date, October 3rd, 2020. So that's pretty cool. Comments?
Yeah, this was actually the first time I used lighting on a mushroom. I had brought a little light with for this one. So it helped take out some of the yellow that you kind of get on a lot of your photos when you're in the middle of a forest. I like this one particularly because the little round shell next to it, and you got a lot of detail on the mushroom itself.
Okay. What I would comment on is that at f1.8, which is a pretty wide open aperture, you get tremendous blurring of the background so that the mushroom is crisply in focus up front, and the background, you know, is you're out in the woods, but you don't know, it's not competing with the mushroom. So that's my comment on that one. Honey of a Morning. That's in the pictorial category. And as long as you're here, second honorable mention, another cell phone photograph.
Yeah, all of my pictures are on my cell phone.
Aha.
This is just in a neighbor's yard, but when I first saw this, it was like I felt like it was an angel, and it was kind of spoke to me in a lot of different ways. So I know there was a problem with like the foreground in that one, but sometimes until you get, you can't really judge everything on your phone, and so sometimes you really can't really truly judge the photo until you get home and really look at it on a big screen. So.
Yeah, I think that's true with pocket cameras and DSL cameras, you name it. You got to get it on the big screen. But more on that later. Any comments from the judges?
No, it's just, striking to see the lighting through the mushroom. So,
yeah. And just for the audience, angel wings, I think, refers to the quality of the image of what it feels like. It is not an angel wing mushroom.
No.
Which is something we are finding this time of year.
Howard, this is Nancy, and I was a judge last year. And on that picture, the only other comment I would add was I just thought the perspective of it was terrific. So often we have them sort of straight on, and I love the feeling of being under it and looking up, and it sweeps you into the picture. So just artistically, I thought it was terrific, in addition to the light coming through.
Yeah. You must have laid your phone down on the ground to take that picture.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Margie Carr Oxley submitted this one. She's not here to comment, I don't believe, but judges, if you have some comments on this, that would be welcome. This is the third honorable mention in pictorial, Craterellus tubeiformis.
Well, Howard, I mean, I think your point too about the f-stop getting the blurry background that yet still has color, and you've got the crispness in the front, you've got the veins coming through, but it does pull your eye back to the other mushrooms of the same species. So I think that just has a really effective. It has a great effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the use of color in this one is terrific also. The kind of brown orange and against the green. Go back to this one, down low looking up, down low looking sideways, sideways views.
Right. I think just getting up close and personal with the mushroom, especially this can be a really small mushroom that you can kind of tell from the moss that it's in. And even though the main focus is kind of centered, there's still a lot kind of moving around it to guide your eye around the image.
Yep.
It's so obvious to see that these are folds rather than gills, so it helps for, me personally, this would be a picture that would be very helpful in some type of a certification class or an ID class, because you could use it to actually point out some differences from other gilled mushrooms. So.
Yeah. That's not criteria for the photograph. It's just
Right. Yep.
So one more honorable mention happens to be a shot I took, and I don't remember where or when I took this.
Ew.
And it's one that I had lost the camera data on. But my only comment on it is I think it's really tough to shoot pure white mushrooms.
Yes.
So having this against a really dark background, the Volvariella grows out of wood. I was able to get the exposure on the white surface and let the black just be background on it, so that the detail of the kind of the furry surface is evident. And it also shows the emerging species below it and the kind of cup or egg that they come out of.
This is, I think, one of the hardest mushrooms to photograph. It's like to get those hairs, you really have to expose for that white. Otherwise, you just get this blast of white. And yeah, that's really well done,
Yeah.
Howard.
Okay, now to the, whoops, wrong direction. Yeah, actual award winners: 5th place in pictorial, Claudette Lamprecht, Cyathus striatus. I don't know, Claudette, are you here? Is just John?
No, I just came down from upstairs.
Excellent.
Okay.
I love this photo. I just love the liquid reflections in the liquid. It really tells a story about how that mushroom propagates. Comments?
Well, it was actually just an outing with our grandkids to a local park, and we were just looking around the edge of the swing set area, and this was located there.
Yeah.
And I happened to have my camera with me and just got up close and personal to it and took a little shot. And
it was a camera shot, not a cell phone?
No, I don't use a cell phone. It's just a little pocket camera.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Sony paint shoot.
Okay.
And it was taken actually in September, early in September.
Okay. It looks like one of the little eggs popped out onto the stick separately. So it's ready to go for next year. Okay. 4th place. Why, Nadine, you're back again. Another cell phone picture, the false turkey tail. And comments on that?
Yeah, just the color on this one came out really well. I was happy with it.
Again, I noticed it's an f1.8. Whether you choose that or whether the
No, these are all I use automatic. Yeah.
It nonetheless does a nice job of blurring the leaves in the background, so they just make the color and the specimens just pop out in front without competing with them. Interesting. I think you'll find that a lot of the photos in pictorial category have a fair amount of color in them. Next one is third place, which I paid the judges to select me on. This was an elm cap or elm oyster, Ipsizygus almarius, whatever. And it's one that I picked and brought back home and just played with an LED light. It was thin enough to be transparent and let the light shine through. So I thought it was just an interesting shot with a lot of color and detail. You wouldn't have to know what it is even. Comments?
There is a question that was in the chat about editing.
Yes.
Is editing allowed in the photos? And I know that, we do some editing, we do some cropping and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, we don't have any rules about editing, but we have not, I'll just say historically, there have not been heavily edited images selected as winners, whether it was by vote of the membership or by the judges. This is cropped, but it's actually the color of the light coming through the mushroom that gives it that golden color. It's pretty much a white mushroom otherwise.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that this was from an elm cap.
Yeah. Okay.
Howard, Heather was asking also, can you get the aperture info off of iPhone photos as well? Have you noticed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe it comes through. If, on the other hand, you edit the image and do a save on it, that information may be lost. So you'll find some of these photos don't have the information. I know that Claudette's was part of a PowerPoint that she sent in. So when that information is lost in the process of putting a JPEG onto the PowerPoint. But that's also kind of a necessary step. So just going forward, maybe I'll ask for that information after winners are selected. If you can go back, find your original photograph, pull that information off, and then I can apply it to a retrospect like this is. It's interesting, this was shot on my little Sony handheld or pocket camera at 1/200th of a second at a very high film speed, ISO 400. And that's primarily because it was a very bright subject with the light shining through it, and I had to drop down the exposure on it. Okay. First place is a tie this year. Marge Carr-Oxley, who is not here right now. Mycena hematopsis, parasiticized by Spinellus huziger. I don't know what to say about this image. It's just phenomenal. Marge seems to have been a first or second place winner for several years now. She does incredible photography, I believe. Comments?
There's been actually for several years in a row a version of this combination of mushrooms has tickled everybody's fancy because of the like fungal sparklers almost effect of this. It's just fascinating to see. So
yeah, the parasite is a mold of some kind, I guess, Spinellus. And each of those little dots on the end of the white hairs, I I believe, is how they spread their spores, I guess it would be. And yeah,
I was just going to say that even with this spectacular sample, she's got so many of the basics in there. I mean, she's down low with the mushroom. She's not like shooting into the light. She's got, the light's coming in. You don't know where it's coming in from, but you can see it's affecting across. She's got the blurry background and yet other species behind it. I mean, she's, it looks sort of like a magical forest there. I mean, she's just kind of didn't just find an amazing mushroom, but then she constructed it with all kind of just the basic elements that you often coach on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, so those mushrooms in the back, then they don't have this parasitic effect on them, correct?
Doesn't appear to be. No.
They're pretty blurred, so you can't tell for sure, but generally speaking, it doesn't look like.
Oops, I can get there. Okay. Next, the other first place, having received the identical score from the judges, is by Charles Kilmers. I believe he's a first-time submitter, just titled Jack-o'-lantern. And what can I say about this but smashing color, and the guttation on it is sparkly. The focus is just perfect, and the background fades away. So more comments. Awesome.
Yeah, so this was on my iPhone 11. Didn't include that information in the photo, so I'm not sure what happened there. But also a neat thing about this. So I love finding the toxic lookalikes. I feel like I can identify them better after I find the toxic lookalikes. But also after I stood up from taking this picture, a deer just walked down the same little deer trail that I was on. Not entirely uncommon in this park because there are a lot of people and a lot of deer, so the deer are not very afraid of people. But it was just a lot of fun, and I just love getting out in the peaceful forest.
Excellent.
It's so nice. I also love that there's another batch kind of in the background peeking in there, kind of like photobombing the main subject.
Yeah, it was a beautiful batch of jack-o'-lanterns.
So pretty.
I would also add, when people are taking photos, especially up close, it's a good thing to look really carefully after you take pictures, because this picture is a great example of getting the focus exactly right. Like I sometimes take a picture and think, oh yeah, it looks pretty good. And I move on and I get home and I find out, oh, well, yeah, the focus is perfect, on this one back stem, but really the front facing edge or the top is a little blurry. I mean, you can still get that blurriness even within a mushroom. So checking to see if you've gotten, the detail where you want it when you've got a cluster of mushrooms. I mean, this one is just spectacular.
Okay, we'll move on to the scientific technical category for submissions. So you can submit up to 5 entries here. This is a category where aesthetics are certainly important, but not the leading importance is to be able to scientifically identify the mushroom. Again, these images should be accompanied by an accurate ID to genus and species, and I emphasize should be, because we can help folks that aren't able to finalize what that might be. And in fact, in some cases, you may have a species that is not yet even identified. So we want to put that into this category. We'll get into the different ways of assembling these submittals as we look at them. But it can be a single photo of the mushroom or a combination of photos in order to do the identification. Here is honorable mention for scientific, and this is a series of photos that were assembled in PowerPoint. So I went back to the original photos that went in here to garner the the data on what they were taken on. These are primarily with a cell phone, ISO 200, but it's a combination that's trying to show the Entoloma abortivum in its various stages, both infected and not. So we've got a spore print, a section, the habitat that it's growing in, and a detail of the actual shrimp mushroom, and part of it as section. So any comments about these guys? We'll move on. We've got about 20 more to go through. I point out that this particular set of mushrooms did come with an ID slip. Supposedly extra credit can be given. So this is something that, especially if you're doing the scientific, you want to have an ID slip accompany it so that it might be useful for others as they examine that photo. Next one is Nan Etzweiler, an honorable mention, Trichiloma aurantium. And Nan, you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think when Howard was saying there's a key to identifying it, it's going to be any kind of a mix of things. I do a lot of cross sections and all. And this, I mean, first it was visually interesting. You know, it's sort of lugubrious there. I had more than one sample, which is useful because then you can photo one but cut up another. In this one in the lower left, you'll see I also included what not only the substrate it's growing in, but you know, the trees and the plants around it. That's a key to identification. And then I got, you know, I have a spore print there. In a cross section of the, you know, the gills. I have the gills underneath, but also I did a kind of a dissection of it. And then you can see some measurements too. So that of different, of the same mushroom, but 3 different examples. So that's kind of what I was going for. It's just a mix of those key elements to identifying the mushroom.
Okay. And this was accompanied by an ID slip, which gives some of the pertinent information about where it was growing, the date, and a brief description. And Nan, another honorable mention in this category.
Again, I mean, you could do a lot of different mushrooms. I like to pick ones that are a little bit unusual. So this one I thought was very interesting because it was sort of a wet cap when I got it, but it also had a very interesting dry brush cap later on. You can see in the upper right, again, I'm putting in the fact that it was near, I can't remember if it was a Scotch pine or a red pine, but you know, just doing different bisections and trying to get super details. So in the top row, second from the right, I was trying to capture the gill arrangement, how they attach on the gill, as well as how that whole cap curves. So I'm looking to try to combine different features. You couldn't put, you know, 20 or 25 different features in 1 or 2 slides. So just trying to pick the best that fits for the particular species.
What I like about this technique of doing a composite in PowerPoint is that it's one slide, you can see everything side by side, opposed to having say 3 separate photographs as separate images. You kind of bounce back and forth that way. If anybody needs help in assembling these PowerPoints, you can probably talk to Nan or me if you'd like for this year's submissions.
It really does help to have all that information, you know, when you're seeing it all on one slide rather than a group of 3.
So here you don't have to ask where it was from. It says it's from near Ely, growing out of dirt, habitat red pine, solitary, coming out of clover grass. So that's a accompanying ID slip. And Caitlin Osborne took 5th place. I believe this is her first submission. I don't know if she can be here tonight. I think she might have had a conflict, but she sent her comment on it. I found the detail of this tiny translucent stipes quite beautiful. I hadn't seen slime mold in person before. I was equally surprised to see two different colors of Trichia varia. I'm a relatively new mushroom enthusiast, so to discover this was exhilarating for me. It's photographing slime molds at this stage is tough to do. And this is on an iPhone. And it's just, I think, remarkable what our cell phone.
I did want to comment that, you know, it is a slime mold, and slime molds technically are not fungi. They've been actually put in with protozoa, but we do grandfather them in by far, definitely because of the interest and the close connections that we have with them. So they are definitely, also included. Yeah.
Right. In the past, MMS Photo Contest has also allowed slime molds. Oh, I hope I don't lose internet. It says it's unstable. Fourth place scientific, Philip Mitchell. I don't know if you're here, Philip.
I'll jump in and say something about this.
Yeah.
This
go
is
ahead,
also,
Elsa.
I hope my audio is coming through all right. I got to be on part of the committee that got to assign, not the voting committee, whatever it's called. But anyway, about this one, some of the parts about it that I really liked, that it is simple. A lot of the pictures we get, it can be really hard for a lot of people to do the scientific category because it can be intimidating. But I like that this one hit a couple of the things that I was looking for in a scientific category, is that it has typical specimens, it has different growth stages, it's identified correctly, it has substrate, and there's a spore print, and it shows the top of the mushroom as well as underneath the cap and the stipe. Although there's no measurement to it, you can get an idea of the scale given by the zoomed in picture and the zoomed out picture based on the substrate. So it actually hit a lot of the top things that I would look for in relatively few pictures. So I thought that one was pretty cool about this one.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, John, your photo of Coprinopsis variegata. Comments?
Yeah, boy, you know, in seeing actually the information and what I took it with, I don't know what that means, but I thought I took it with my iPhone, but
that your SMG98IU is the code for your iPhone.
Okay, all right, yeah, because I actually honestly don't know where I'd find that information otherwise. So I just take pictures. But at any rate, this is actually from my wood pile. And we always look, you know, I do a lot of teaching for my 3-year-old and 5-year-old granddaughters. And it's really fun when you've got mushrooms in a lot of different stages that are growing actually in your own wood pile. So there's a lot of teaching that went on, and actually it was my 5-year-old granddaughter that encouraged me to do a spore print of this. I was really skeptical that a spore print would turn out in any kind of way on a inky cap, but they do. Spore prints turn out very nicely on inky caps.
Sure
did. Especially if you use one like that, you know, larger one that's in the bottom left-hand picture. If they're ones that are, you know, deliquescing too much, obviously you're going to get a big bunch of goo, but it does give you a very nice spore print. And if you see them in all the various stages, you can do it in a fairly a small, you know, I mean, you can put all the detail pretty well together. You know, so.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
opportunity though, basically is what it boils down to.
Yep. Okay, this is a second place. I found 5,000 armillarias last year. It was just one part of the woods I was in, you couldn't walk without crushing them. And it went for, 80 yards. And you can see September 1st, 2020. This is a combination of the various stages of growth. It shows the spore print, the underside of the cap. And what I found really interesting, way back in May of last year, I came across a log that had the rhizomorphs of armillaria exposed, and I thought they were a tremendous pattern, and that's part of what makes them one of the largest mushrooms in the world, I believe. Is that right, John?
It allows them to be much more efficient in how much water they can draw up. Yes. Yeah. And that accounts for their large size.
It's I guess masses of mycelium that are bound together somehow, and in this case kind of exposed on dry wood. But if that was underneath the bark, which it was probably the prior year, that's the living tissue of the armillaria.
So that those rhizomorphs make it very pathogenic, because those rhizomorphs will spread and get into other trees.
Right. Okay. And it had an ID slip with it, just with the location. And I don't know what the log was that it was on, unable to identify it, but it's in mixed hardwoods, so there were no conifers in that area.
Howard, how do you identify which mushroom or fungi the rhizomorph comes from?
I went online and talked with probably 5 different experts that said that's the rhizomorph of armillaria. Okay. And I think Tom Volk was included in that discussion. I wouldn't say it's a discussion, but just on the internet. I had posted a series of these, and I also did find just a batch of photos of armillaria melia rhizomorphs online. So it's just looking up. You look up rhizomorphs, doggone, some of the information on the internet, I believe. That was an aside. Okay. Nan, first place in scientific category. Are you still there?
I'm here. I'm not seeing the slide yet. Here we go.
This is the reason why Nan had a lot of honorable mentions, because she can only win once with her entries in each category, because
That's
otherwise
true.
she might have swept for second and third place. So
Yeah. And that's the reason I put in the honorable mentions, just to give some credit to what are really winning images.
No, thanks. I think this one is a good example of, you can see in the lower right, I did a lot of measuring, and you measure using the centimeter side of a ruler, and that's just a little 6-inch pocket thing you can get online that I carry around in my basket. But I did try in this one to do kind of show for identification purposes all the differences in the tip and the top of the stipe, for example, or across the top. The top pictures, I was also trying to catch some of the more unique features of this particular species, which you can sort of see in the top left. I was able to get some light coming through. It's inky. You can see it there. I've got the spore print, but the cap also has those little wisps or hairs too. That is, if you don't already know what it is, by the time you see the inky stuff, you can look at the little hairs, and then you can see in the smack in the middle. I also have the the mix of roots. So it shows not only what kind of it's growing on, but that it's clustered. So I was, it's a smattering of just different ID things, but I did go a little crazy here with the ruler, but I like carrying that thing around.
I think this is one of the most photogenic mushrooms. That the cap at a certain stage is translucent, and the gill pattern just shows right through it. I've seen some really stellar photos of it, and they are ephemeral. They last a day? I mean, maybe two, and they melt away.
So timing is everything.
Yeah. So you gotta get out, accompanied, of course, by an ID slip. And now on to activity, humor, and other. Here, this is pretty much the wide open category, and it seems like humor is one of the primary submissions for these photos, at least in the last few years. But events, MMS events, things are certainly acceptable to document some of our activities. Jane Honorati, 5th place, dodged a bullet. Kind of speaks for itself, but Jane, if you have any comments, go for it.
Not in particular, but it's just I think I decided that I might be more successful at winning an award at the photo contest if I entered the humor category. So
well, you got a great capture of the detail of the stock on this, the kind of scabers or whatever you want to call that. Really is great detail too.
Yeah, but it's like you say, one of those white mushrooms. So I think the cap is a little washed out, but I just find it really interesting, the things that mushrooms do to get it to grow, to get around out of the ground and get around things or sticks and blades of grass are embedded in them. It's just really interesting.
And given the news in the last few days, mushrooms are also a social issue. I can see. I'm sorry, I had to do that. Terrible thing happened in St. Paul, obviously.
Yeah. Question: is there an ID on that mushroom?
No, that wasn't submitted. I don't know if Jane has one or not.
Because I think it's Lexinum holopus, which is the pale whitish Lexinum, which is pretty rare. I mean, it's not real common, but we do find it in our area.
Perfect. Thank you. This was shot with another pocket camera. There's a tie for 3rd place. This is in my neighbor's front yard, and a week ago it looked just like this. And last year it was September 15th. So the season is extended this year. The honeys were in profusion just about 1 week ago, exact same spot. I probably could have shot the same picture. He's got this stump in his yard carved into a bear, and what can you say? It's a honey bear. That's all. Nadine, one more for you. Tied for 3rd place in humor, Mount Mushmore.
I actually flipped this photo, but the space is actually in what kind of caught me is that it's the positioning of the mushrooms is the same as Mount Rushmore when I flip the photo around, including where the space between the heads are. So anyway, it was kind of fun.
Well, I think you can imagine a face on, especially that 3rd one.
Yeah.
Don't need to. That's great.
Is Donald Trump one of them?
No.
You had to go there. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it's,
Well, and we had problems naming this. It could have been Mount Rushroom or Mushmore, so we were.
okay,
Yeah.
I know, the titles are cool.
Mm.
And first place tied, John Lamprecht. I wonder why you called this toadstool. Couldn't figure that out.
You know, and to continue with the theme, you know, our granddaughter, our 5-year-old granddaughter, she loves to catch toads in the spring, and then we keep them. And they love to have mushrooms in their little cage with them because there's maggots that come out of especially boletes. And they will sit on top and wait for things, you know, whether it's fungus flies or maggots or whatever to come. And we just, you know, it's again, it's opportunity, but.
Very cool. And one more picture. Ron, comments on this one, your zombie ant.
Okay. Well, I had the very good fortune of going down to Columbia on the one of the mushrooming tours down there. And that was with Daniel Winkler and his associate down there, Dr. Tatiana San Juan, is a cordyceps expert, and so is Daniel, actually. So we were really looking for the cordyceps down there, and you know, boy, I tell you, like Tatiana, I mean, these things are pretty obscure. I mean, you know, hard to see these things, but she could spot them. And I did not spot that myself, but I was there and took a photo. And, you know, I mean, cordyceps is becoming viral in our culture now. I mean, it's everywhere. And in the, you know, capsules and medicinal mushrooms, but also, you know, there's all these YouTube videos of the zombie ants. So anyway, it was kind of cool just to actually see one of those zombie ants.
Okay. Well, unusual photo and unusual location. Thank you. Lastly, if I can get this to advance, here we go. The top vote getter out of all the submissions this year was a tie, and that is the Blewett Award. And so Marge Carr-Oxley, her parasitized Mycena, and okay, whoops, we'll get there. Charles Kilmer, the jack-o'-lantern photo, which we discussed both of them, but this is a special award that goes to the highest vote getter. I think it includes a blue ribbon for the Blewett Award, if I'm not mistaken, John.
It's actually a specialized ribbon that has, I mean, we've come up with. I guess the major feature is often we will feature the winners of this at our state fair display. So, you know, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that, but usually we will blow this picture up. And
well, let's do it next year.
Yes.
Okay. This is the last part of the presentation, and I'm not going to go through a lot of detail on this. In order to, let's say, my recommendations for taking good mushroom photos, take photo classes. They're available at National Camera, in various photo clubs. There are seminars online. And read your camera's manual and try to understand your camera, how it works. And there's a full presentation that I put together a few years back on PowerPoint that's loaded onto the MMS website under resources. That is another hour presentation on lots of detail about taking mushroom photos. The number one rule, of course, is to be safe out there. Just like all the forays we go on, inform people of where you're going, be with a buddy if you can, prepare for ticks, use a walking stick. That third leg has saved me so many times. I still do an occasional face plant, but that's the way it is. Take a whistle along, take your keys for a couple of the things that I think flip screen cameras are great. You can see your image option to retake photographs. The same on your cell phone, you can see the image right away. Colorful mushrooms often win. If you want to be a little more particular, choose the manual settings. The pictures we've seen often were on automatic though. The cameras are just getting better and better. Take time to compose your shot and prep your subject. Remove the obstructions. Sometimes it pays to spritz the cap so that it glistens a little bit. A lot of time you're shooting in dark conditions, so having a tripod or something to brace the camera with is helpful for what might be a slower shutter speed. Some of the images we didn't really talk too much about, a couple of notes about it, is use supplemental lighting. It's hard to shoot, and I'll say supplemental shading. If your subject is in bright sun, it's really hard to capture the contrast. So being in shade is helpful. But there are a number of reflectors and lights. Even a white handkerchief works. Being that everybody's shooting digital now, it seems like you've got the opportunity to shoot, review it, adjust things, pull out that blade of grass that you didn't see, reshoot, repeat till you get one that if you've got the right specimen, well, just take lots of different little different angles, details, etc. Sometimes you want to pick that a specimen for a spore print and for further study at home, or even further photography once you get into a more controlled setting. Complete your ID slips. Edit as necessary when you get it loaded onto your computer, or just shoot it and send it to me right off your phone. I file most of my mushroom photographs in files that are labeled, that might be 30 or 40 photographs from a particular outing. I'll put the date on that file and the location of it. Then I can recall things better when I come back to analyze them. So with that, the end. I should show you that lion's mane though. Boy, that was a beaut. Maybe it'll be in the contest this year. With that, I'm closing, and if you wanted to take a gander at past Golden Chanterelle Awards, here they are.
And Gene Kramer was our 2020 award winner.
Yep. 2021 to be determined in the next month or so, huh? Okay. I'm done sharing.
Super. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was fun. It went longer than I thought it would.
Any questions? I mean, we had a number on chat that we answered some things.
I see 59 comments.
Well, one of the big questions was, and that we did answer was, there are no geographical limits to your photographs. So if you're traveling, if you're on vacation, you're on a road trip or whatever, if you see some mushrooms, take pictures.
Right. I see a question, do the photos have to be taken in 2021? No, they do not. They could come from your archive, but it is kind of nice to have the date embedded in the photo, so you can kind of tell, oh, that was from 10 years ago. I did something wonderful then. Whatever. Rules do state entries must be the work of a member while they're an active member of MMS. So that kind of goes hand in hand with your membership. If you just joined and your photos from 5 years ago, that shouldn't count.
Well, Howard, I'd like to challenge. I mean, we had great participation last year. I mean, I would encourage everybody on here to just submit one. I mean, even if it doesn't go very far, you start to get your eye improves more and more the more you look at these, and you get a little more engaged. But I think all comers should, members should submit at least one. That's my challenge this year.
Excellent.
I totally agree. Yes,
I agree.
absolutely.
I feel like we all learn more from everyone's photos, and I've learned a ton from looking back at my photos when I thought I knew what something was, and then I learned more later. So they're a great study aid for yourself and for everyone. And I've taken photos of things before that I found out later were maybe a really rare mushroom, but just didn't know it at the time and got to learn more about it.
Yeah, well, I think last year having 130 different species was pretty incredible. So let's shoot for 230 this year.
Sounds great. Hey, Howard, thank you for this presentation, but thank you for all of the work you do for the photo contest too, and just to kind of teach us all, the tricks of taking good photos and just all you've done to kind of push this forward, the photo contest forward.